Welcome back to Empowerment and Illness, the podcast where we explore ways to thrive while living with chronic illnesses. Last week, my daughter gave you insight from her perspective on what it was like growing up with a parent who has a chronic illness and dealing with a serious health condition. We will continue with part 2 of Strength Through Support, a Family's Journey. Let's listen to Mike's perspective on this journey. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Can you share how you first reacted when you found out I had lupus and what your initial thoughts were when I was later diagnosed with breast cancer?
Well, as you remember, when I first found out that you had lupus, it was the night we met. So, probably one of the second or third things that you told me about you was that you had lupus because you wanted to kind of get it out of the way early. And so I remember my first reaction was I asked you, can I get it? Because I didn't know anything about lupus at the time. So I didn't know if it was contagious or what. And you were like, no, you can't get it. And I said, okay, cool, then no problem. And so that's how I initially felt about it. It just wasn't a big deal to me if I couldn't get it. So my thoughts about breast cancer was basically it was just kind of another thing in the list of things that had been going on. You know, we had dealt with so much in reference to lupus over the years to where when breast cancer popped up, it was just kind of like one more thing. So it was a big deal, but it wasn't a big deal, if that makes any sense, because it was just kind of like another list in the long line of things that we had been going through.
So it didn't shock you, or?
It did. I'm not gonna lie, it did shock me. It kind of threw me off for about a hot minute, and then I sucked it up and just kept on pushing.
So how has our relationship evolved during all of these trials?
I guess I would say that it has evolved into just learning, understanding, adapting. It's been so much stuff that we've gone through over these years to where we just had to kind of adapt to every new circumstance and learn to just be patient with certain things. Learning how to deal with whatever stage you were in, with whatever you were going through, whether it was a surgery or a lupus flare-up or just every day being tired or every day being in pain. It was just adapting to those circumstances and kind of taking them as they came.
Yeah, I guess you were a lot patient.
Yeah. I kind of had to learn early on that all of my everything, for the most part, would have to take a back seat because lupus was bigger than both of us, and we would have to kind of deal with it as it came, and it was bigger than anything that anything that I could have had going on. So because lupus was kind of like a really bad, irate, spoiled child that just had to have its way at any moment, and when it showed up, it's going to get your attention. You're going to have to put all your focus on it, and you're going to have to deal with it, and whatever you want takes a back seat because lupus is kind of making itself known at that moment.
That's a good analogy.
I do what I can. You know what I'm saying? I do what I can.
What have been some of the biggest challenges you've faced as my primary support person?
I would say some of the biggest challenges have been just learning to be more patient, learning to be more understanding, learning how to cope with all of the stuff you were going through. Prior to meeting you, I hadn't ever been through anything for the most part. I was never sick before, never broke a bone, never anything. So meeting you and then you having all of these issues right off the bat. Remember, you had double hip replacements within 6 months of me meeting you. So just learning how to deal with everything was a challenge. I mean, it wasn't super bad because I'm the type that just kind of take things as they come, and I'm a bright side kind of person, and so I just kind of bright sided everything for the most part. But I don't want to make it seem like it wasn't rough, because it was rough. But
yeah, I was depressed around that time because remember that's the time that I said that I didn't want to live and didn't want to go on.
Yeah.
And you brought me like a laptop and some, you tried to set it up to where I could sit up in the bed and I could work or play games or whatever because I couldn't get out of the bed. And I was really down. I was really down then.
Well, yeah, because that was a really difficult time for you. Like I didn't worry about anything that I was feeling and what I was going through, because anything that I felt like I was being, like, if I was selfish in that moment and cared about me, then I felt like I was, like, I almost want to say a horrible person, because how dare I sit here and worry about, oh, we can't go to the movies or we can't go out nowhere or whatever, when you're laid up in this bed, after double hip replacements, you literally are laid in the bed on your back for 3 months straight, not being able to move, roll over, get up, or anything. So I was more concerned with, you getting better, and just, I just kind of blocked all of my stuff out because it paled in comparison to what you were going through.
How do you manage to balance your own needs and well-being while supporting me?
Honestly, I'd say I've learned to just kind of back burner some of my stuff. I don't keep everything on the back burner. I don't keep stuff like bottled up or whatever. But I've learned how to kind of channel my energies other places, like in my gadgets or in, going to a movie, because I go to movies with the quickness, and either you coming or you ain't, but I'm going. So I've learned how to, get my little 15 minutes of sanity wherever I could get it, and whether that was, in gadgets or in going to a movie or just, playing a video game like I used to do back in the day, or something. But I learned how to be able to, find the time where I could do me and still be able to be there and support you with how you need it.
What role has communication played in maintaining our relationship and supporting me?
Communication has played a huge role, especially on my part, because you're not really forthcoming with the communication most of the time. What I mean by that is you won't just automatically say. But luckily, since I always tell you, I've always told you and will always continue to tell you that I studied you back in the day. So I know when something's wrong. You don't have to say a word. So I'll come to you and I'll be like, what's wrong? And you like, why you say that? And I'm like, well, because something's different. You moving different, you look different, you sound different. Something's different today or this morning or whatever. And then you'll say, well, I don't feel right. And I'm like, okay, well, why don't you feel right? Tell me what's going on. And so it's just, I've gotten used to me kind of pulling information out of you, which you should know, because I'm always saying, I'm trying to pull teeth, because you only come up off like 1 or 2 words. I feel all right. Well, I'm okay. And I'm like, okay, that ain't enough. There's actually more in there. What's really going on? How do you really feel? And not just I'm okay or nothing, because notorious for saying nothing. And then I have to sit there and ask you 5 more times, and then you'll finally tell me. So communication's played a huge role.
It's difficult to go and talk about it all the time, because to me, if you speak it, you're speaking it out, and so you give it legs and you give it weight. So I try not to give it as much weight as I'm giving it in my head. So I just kind of keep stuff to myself.
Well, no, I understand that, and that works for you, like personally within yourself. That helps you to cope. But the issue I've run across with you saying that, with you doing those things, is that it doesn't help me out. Like, you're protecting yourself by saying that, but it just heightens my stress level, because I know something's going wrong, but you're not telling me, so I can't help you. And I can't fix it in that I can't fix it.
Okay, so how do you stay informed and educated about lupus and breast cancer to support me?
Well, when you first told me about lupus back in the day, some almost 30 years ago. Wow, that's crazy.
28.
I said almost.
28.
So, I didn't know anything about it, never heard of lupus for a day in my life. And then I started actually talking to people I knew, and they were like, yeah, such and such got lupus. I'm like, for real? I didn't know that. And they're like, yeah. And then so I started reading up on it and studying, because, I've always liked to know stuff. So I did a bunch of research, a bunch of studying on what is lupus, what is it about, how do you, how does it affect you, the kinds of lupus, all of that sort of thing. So I did all, and then after that initial research, because I can't say I kept on doing a bunch of research after that, but after that I just like noticed things that you go through. Like one of the things that I've noticed that I've even told you about a lot is that stress affects your lupus. Whenever you start stressing out, shortly thereafter, now you get tired. And then once you get tired, you're laid up in the bed and you can't do nothing. And so stress affects your lupus. It starts to get you to flare up, which is why I'm always trying to get you to not stress about stuff. And so basically just watching you and how you react to your environment or to me being an idiot sometimes and doing stuff or whatever the case may be. So, but that's basically how I stay informed on that. And the breast cancer thing, I guess since it's over, I don't stay informed about it because that process is over. But when you first told me about it, I read stuff to find out as much as I could to see what all needed to be done, what all was going to be done. Talked to the doctors. Remember, I was in the recording, the doctors telling me everything.
Yeah, we went through a bunch of research.
Yeah.
We watched a bunch of videos.
We watched a bunch of videos on YouTube, watching other videos of other women that had gone through the same thing that you were about to go through, just to kind of prepare myself and so I would know what was going on. And then we just kind of dealt with it from there.
And we asked all kind of questions.
Yeah, we asked a bunch of questions to the doctors. And like I said, and luckily for you, you had the good kind. My bad. Well, I say the good kind because we joke that Gwen, even though she's had lupus, she had, it wasn't like the kind that affected her organs. She had the kind that affected her joints. So every time a joint went bad, she could just get it replaced. They make joints. You can get them off the shelf. They don't make organs. So, and then when she had breast cancer, even though it was breast cancer, she didn't have to go through chemo. She didn't have to go through radiation. So we always joke and say you had the good kind. So
that's because when I went to that support group, one of the ladies in there that had it, she told me, she's like, "Oh, you don't belong here. You belong in because you had the good kind." And I didn't understand. I still had a mastectomy. I still had my breast removed. So I don't know how breast cancer could be a good kind. That's where the joke came from. What advice would you give to other spouses who are supporting partners with chronic illnesses or some type of serious condition?
I would say for them to be patient, understanding. I'd say be observant. Watch your spouse and see how they're reacting to what they're going through. That way it'll make you more informed so you can be of more assistance and a better help. But one of the biggest things I'd actually say is that, like, one of the things that I always tried to do was I tried to make sure I still treated you like a normal person, no matter what. Because I know one of your biggest issues was that, you had a lot of friends and family that have always treated you like you were actually handicapped or treated you like you were like some really fragile piece of fine china. So they overprotected and it drove you nuts because you just wanted to be regular. So your biggest thing was, I want to be normal. I want to be like everybody else. So I tried to make sure to continue to treat you like I would treat anybody else. And I would only step in cases where I knew you needed me. Outside of that, I'd let you do your thing and whatever you want to do. And if you need help, then I'm right here to help you. But you can be as normal as you want and do whatever you feel like doing. And let you make those decisions instead of me saying, "Ooh, you know what? I don't think you should be doing this because of, So I just try to continue to treat you like a regular person.
Yeah, the thing for me, I guess the biggest thing is that you were always present. When I went through breast cancer, you went to every single appointment with me. Like, you were there when I went through surgery. Everything that I had to do, you're working with Maddie with the grenades, the drainage tube. So that was huge for me, that you were always just there. And then lupus made us deal with it.
Yeah, it did. I mean, it's like I said, lupus is going to be in your face. It's going to let you know that it's here.
Yeah.
And so we just dealt with it accordingly.
Yeah, I agree. Can you share any strategies or practices that have helped you maintain a positive outlook and strong family unit through these health challenges?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things, aside from the fact that just I always try to look at things from a glass half full perspective, And on the bright side, and because me, I always say could be worse. Could be worse.
Yep.
So aside from that, I always also say, well, you know what? It happens to everybody, right? Everybody's going to have challenges in their life, whether they have lupus or cancer or this or that. Somebody, every single person's going to have some challenges. So we're no different than everybody else. And we just got to take it in stride like everybody else does.
Sometimes it's difficult to do.
It's very difficult. I'm talking right now. I ain't saying it was easy. I'm saying it's what I did, and how I felt it needed to be done. It was extremely difficult at times. There was times where some of this stuff, taking it in stride, there was some long strides.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can't see the backside of the hurricane because you're caught in the middle of it, but it's coming at some point. And I just kept that in mind that, we're kind of going through it right now, but this flare up will be over at some point. If we do the things that need to get done, get her to go see the doctor, or have her, adjust the medicines like the doctor said, or bring down the stress level, quit worrying about so much stuff, then it'll get better. And it always did. So
yeah, that's true. It did get better. The thing that when I was talking to Maddie, I told her that at the end of each segment that I have this thing I call Healing Heartbeats. Where you get a chance to wallow in your sorrow. So what do you do if you are down? How do you handle that? And what would you tell someone who is dealing with a chronic illness? Like, what would be some of the things you give them, like, advice?
My biggest advice that I can say on the internet that I would tell people to do would be to just look at the bright side, and remember it's not, it's just another thing to go through. Try not to, even if it is a big deal, try not to treat it as though it's a big deal. And that I mean, try to not allow yourself to get overwhelmed by it. Like that old saying, the old phrase, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Do that. So just kind of take the challenge as it comes, one bite at a time, deal with it as it comes, and that'll kind of help you get through it.
Being in this relationship and me going through everything that I've gone through, you made a lot of sacrifices. So was it worth it?
Absolutely, it was worth it. I don't measure things based on what I'm going through at that moment, because if I did, then, like when you're going through headaches with your children, they're not worth it in that moment. But when you look at the grand scheme of things, it's like, okay, when my child is gotten older and is a productive member of society, taking care of themselves, then you look back over time and say, okay, it was all worth it. All the headaches were all worth it. And not that I'm comparing you to a child or anything, but looking back at it after going through all of the stuff, it was more than worth it. I would trade all of that time again if I could. If after you had lupus and after you went through that stuff, you achieved the things that you've gone through. Remember, you've had double hip replacements, one knee rebuilt, 2 ankles redone, and 1 shoulder redone. After all of that, you went back to school, got your master's degree. Now you're an executive at your job. You're not depressed. You're not unhealthy. You don't have organ damage. You're still mobile. You're still living life. You're still doing the things you want to be doing, and you're still pushing through every single day, even after I offered to retire you a few years ago, because I said, look here, you done been through enough. Go ahead and, turn in your towel and sit this one out and ride this out. And I got it. And you said, nope, I want to keep on going. And so I appreciate that. And I actually admire that drive and determination in you. So absolutely, it was well worth it.
Before we leave, I would like to close with a special portion of the show I call Healing Heartbeats. This is where we allow ourselves to wallow in sorrow. Give yourself 3 minutes to laugh, cry, scream, cuss, or just sit in silence. Whatever you need to do to feel, do it. Let the depression end for only 3 minutes or so. Once you reach your 3 minutes, compartmentalize it and go back to living. This is a rinse and repeat behavior. You cannot let depression take over, because when it does, it will not let go. When you hear about the passing of someone, they have the day they were born, and then they have the day that they passed away. There is a dash in the middle. It is not a long line, but a dash. That short dash represents your life. Go live in spite of having a chronic illness, and don't let your chronic illness stop you. I want to thank both Maddie and Mike for sharing their experience and insights today. Their support has been invaluable to me, and I hope our conversation helped others who are navigating similar journeys. To our listeners, remember that you are not alone. There is strength in family and hope in every step forward. Until next time, remember, you have the strength, the support, and the heart to continue your journey. Be safe.